Wondering how you can become better at running your business? Entrepreneurship can be stressful. There's too much to do and not enough time. If you're isolated in your daily decisions, have no fear. Success and balance are possible. Welcome to the Small Business Answer Man podcast, where you master the art of running a successful business using practical advice from experts who want to help you succeed. Now, here's your host, Gary Wilbers.
Okay, well, I am excited that you joined me this morning for Mindset, Your Winning Formula. I'm going to share with you from a couple books that I've read and really kind of give some information, I think, to really make some sense to you to really set it up. But I think one of the keys to success is right here in the mindset area of how important that is, because it's really what will make the winning formula, not only professionally, but also personally what it will do for you. And I want to share some of that information with you today. But let's start from the basics of really defining mindset. And so we've got a good understanding of what that is in each one of those areas. So mindset is defined as a particular way of thinking. It's kind of the person's attitude, a set of opinions about something. It's a mental attitude or inclination, kind of that fixed state of mind. One thing about mindset is it can be changed, but the only thing we do have to remember is we have to remember from 0 to 10, we learn a lot of what we take forward the rest of our life. So we have to work on making that change if we want to make that change for ourselves. But we have that capability to do it. But the thing is, you will find out in my presentation today, a lot of times we get in this stuck mindset. We kind of get on this safe path that we're unwilling to grow, learn, and change. We're not willing to make that happen. But we talk about the past and why the future never is going to be any better. So we get stuck in where we're at. We tell people why it cannot be done instead of why it can be done. So the thing is, we have to make that change. Instead, you can have what I term a climber mindset, which is the person that searches to grow, learn, change, and become who they want to be. It allows you to accomplish new ways to accomplish goals and keep trying even if you fail, and realizing failing is part of the process. Now, I think this becomes the key, because I talked about you have to be willing to search, grow, learn, and change. Well, that's one reason, hopefully, you decided to join this session today, is to allow yourself to some things that you can learn and maybe some things that you can change. But the key, you're going to find out later, we have to take action on it. So when we look at it, we start in this process of the conscious and unconscious. And I've been digging into this some over the last year, and it's amazing how much things that conscious mind really is only 15% that we use. We originate ideals from the conscious mind, and we ultimately make choices in the conscious mind. But our challenge comes in the subconscious. Subconsciously, we do things all the time because that's how we did them before. I don't know about you, but earlier this morning, I brushed my teeth, I shaved, and then I took my shower. And guess what? Subconsciously, I do that every morning that same way. And you have a setup of how you get ready each and every day too. Because why? The subconscious just takes over because it's known. It's kind of our executive factor. And we live in this executive factor of what our self-image we want it to be, what beliefs we hold true, and what we see that we have. And we use a lot of that from our past experiences. So I'm going to share with you today is the goal is to pass the desired ideal into your subconscious mind so that you can start seeing the results, because you're going to get it accomplished if you go to your subconscious mind. If you only stay in the conscious, a lot of times you won't do some of the things because you'll come up with things that you want to do, but you won't make them happen. So the question I ask you to think about today for yourself is, how do you want to live? What do you want your life to be? What do you want to progress? What do you want to achieve yet in each one of those areas? And then many of you have heard me talk before about paradigms. What paradigm do I need to change or break? And a paradigm is how we see and view the world. So some of us may be a smoker. That may be a paradigm that you would like to change, but you don't know how to break it. Some of you may want to change a paradigm of losing some weight. That's a paradigm that you have to change or break. Some of you may want to not yell at your kids. That's a paradigm you want to change and break. So what is it for you that you want to do? And I want you to think through that. I won't make you put it up in chat, but I want you to really think about what is that paradigm that you really need to change or break to really progress to the next level. And I love quoting people. I tell people all the time, nothing better than quoting yourself. And one of my quotes is, you can either have a climbing or stuck mindset. The choice is up to you. But it's always in them choices that get us. Now, I'm going to reference several different books, and I've got Carol Dweck's book right here, and she talks about mindset, the psychology of success, and we're going to reference a couple others. But let's dig into this a little bit of what Carol Dweck says in this video that you are going to listen to.
Researcher and Professor Carol Dweck uses the term mindset to describe the way people think about ability and talent. Dweck delineates between two different mindsets that exist on a continuum. The first is the fixed mindset, which suggests that your abilities are innate and unchangeable. The second is a growth mindset, which views it as something you can improve through practice. In a fixed mindset, you view failure as permanent, but with a growth mindset, you see failure as a chance to learn and even pivot. Those with a fixed mindset are more likely to view critical feedback as a personal attack, while those with a growth mindset will see it as a chance to improve, where they can develop new systems. With a fixed mindset, you're more likely to choose easier tasks and put in minimal effort. After all, if talent is fixed, why bother improving? I even try. But with a growth mindset, you're more likely to embrace challenging tasks and work hard to improve. Those with a fixed mindset are likely to give up when they face an obstacle. Meanwhile, those with a growth mindset will view obstacles as a chance to experiment and solve problems. In a fixed mindset, the focus is on measurable accomplishments. But with the growth mindset, the focus is more on a journey of continual improvement. With a fixed mindset, you're less likely to take creative risks. But with a growth mindset, creative risks are simply a way to innovate and improve. Ultimately, your mindset influences everything from creative risk-taking to how you view feedback to whether or not you finish difficult tasks. And in the end, it's one of the greatest factors in determining whether or not you grow and improve in your ability.
So, of course, what were they telling us there? They were telling us straight out, one of the things we've got to look at is a growth mindset. To be able to change, to make those changes, because it's a progress and it's a journey that we can take. Another book that I read, and then I'm going to share some information, is this Uncommon Accountability. You would think on uncommon accountability, that's not about mindset, but actually it is, because it talks about a radical new approach to greater success and fulfillment that we can achieve. And in this book, he talks about the power of mindset, that we have to free our mind and the rest will follow. But we have to know what is that we're trying to achieve to get to. He talks about some definitions here in the power of mindset in his book, that he talks about mindset, that it's the source of everything that gets accomplished in life. The way one thinks drives behaviors, and behaviors create results. Thinking is so fundamental to success that if it isn't intentional, results cannot be optimized. Now, I want you to think about this a minute. What is one challenge in our world today? A lot of us, we have very little time to think. We're so busy being busy that we're busy being busy. So the challenge we have, if he says the way one thinks drives behavior and behaviors create results, that's why thinking is so fundamental to that success. We have to be actually intentional on what we want to do and to be able to think about what we want to get. Now, you'll see on this accountability that I outer, I want you to determine where you think you are right now. Where do you stand on the ladder? Are you in that victim mindset? That victim mindset where you know things just happen to you? You always blame others. You kind of wait and hope something good's going to happen for you. You give excuses all the time why you're not doing something, why you're not willing to start that exercise program or quit that smoking or whatever it is. Or you really just say, I don't know. I'm at this lower ladder rung, and I don't know how to climb the next side of it. Or do you have that accountable mindset that things happen because of you? If you have the accountable mindset, you make things happen. You find solutions, because guess what? There's always problems, but you find those solutions out there. If you have a challenge, you own it. You don't blame somebody else for it. And you acknowledge your reality of where you're at today and where you want to go. In the book, they talked about it's all about your thinking. And he shared this rat model. And it's thinking creates your actions. Your action creates your results. And I'll be honest, he got me thinking when I saw this, and I changed it around. And I said, it's really the TAR method that you're looking for. TAR to me is our thinking drives our actions, which gets us our results. And TAR, one thing about that is what? It's very sticky, right? So the more sticky you are, the more thinking you do, the more you can put your actions into place to get the results that you want. So you've got to realize a lot of what we create is about our thinking. So the challenge we all face is when we want to address our thinking, it's about our mindsets, because they become dynamic. And again, look what it comes back to. It comes back to largely it's unconscious. So we go to that unconscious mind. So what complicates this is our ability to think more intentionality, is that our thinking is a combination of both unconscious beliefs and those moment-to-moment conscious thoughts. If our actions are partially the result of unconscious beliefs, it stands to reason it's difficult to change what we are truly aware of. Let me give you an example. Some of you may have heard this story before, but I've shared it. Back in November 18th of 2002, I wanted to lose weight. I was 75 pounds heavier than I am now. It was about 275 pounds, the heaviest I've ever been. And I wanted to change that. Now, I knew I wanted to make that change, but I had to change my thinking. So I had to decide, what else do I want? What do I want to make that change in each one of those areas? So what I had to do, I had to make some changes if I was going to make that happen. That was me that had to do that. So it came down to that thinking. So I had to challenge our thoughts. They were in conflict because I wanted to change. I wanted to lose weight. But of course, I really didn't need to get started. I had a business coach at the time who helped me with it. And he picked up the phone and said, here, I'm going to call Wilson's, which was a fitness center in Jefferson City at the time, and I'm going to set you up an appointment. We made that first appointment. But then he made me accountable because of the conflict, because he knew, will I show up? So I went to that training session. He told me two things. Make sure after you go to that training session, you schedule some personal training sessions and you pay for those. Because number one, he knew if I paid for them, I'd be more likely to show up. So there was a conflict that came because I spent an hour with this gentleman, and within 1 hour, I became buddies with him because he made me feel good. So he told me, okay, I can train you. I have Tuesday and Thursday afternoons open. I was in retail sales at that time, running my company with the wireless company. I would have not had time. So there was another conflict. I could have said, yes, I want to do Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, and I would probably never showed up. But right in my mind, I had to say, no, I've got to schedule this. And my wife asked me, she had no problem me doing it, but she asked if I would do during the morning because I left early for work anyway, and the kids were already sleeping. And she said that would be a good time because then you wouldn't be taking the evenings with family time. So a conflict came up, and he said, well, I can get you another trainer. They have a 5 a.m. slot open. I got up early already and was normally at the office by 6:30, but I normally weren't up by 4:30. I was up around 5:30. So right there was a conflict. I had to make a change. But I said yes to that 5 a.m. and I started exercising. So those conflicts are going to come up, but it becomes in your thinking of why do you want to do it? My why was my 2 small children at that time and a third one on the way, that I wanted to be an active father for them. So my why was my driving force to say, yes, I can do it. In the mornings that when that alarm went off at 4:30 a.m. and I didn't want to get up, my why drove me to get up. And that's what made the change. But so many of us live in what we call this victim mindset. And in the victim mindset, the challenge is people seem to prefer to see themselves and portray themselves as victims of external factors instead of taking greater accountability for their choices and ultimately changing their lives for the better. How many, you don't have to raise your hand, but how many, if you would really be honest with yourself, you play this victim mindset? Our world loves this right now. You know, not taking responsibility is what we see even from our leaders in our country. So it's a real challenge of taking it for yourself. But if you're going to change something, the victim mindset, they say, psychologists say that blame helps preserve self-esteem. Or in conflict, blame helps attempt to resolve those conflicts. So what happens? What we do is we preserve our self-esteem by playing the victim mindset. And it also comes into another reason that blame is so common is that blaming others and external factors is also easier than blaming yourself. Because if the fault isn't yours, you never have to do the work to fix it, right? It's somebody else's problem. Johnny at work made me this way, or my wife's this way, or my spouse is this problem. But it comes back to that model again. What are you thinking about? What is your thinking? What actions do you have to do to make that change? What results ultimately do you need to get? When you think about it, that will start to put in place the things that you need to start doing and ultimately get the results that you want. The victim stance, the bottom line is persuasive reasons that people avoid accountability, further reinforcing the victim mindset. Society, as I said earlier, supports the thinking that we're not to blame for unfortunate circumstances. It's somebody else's fault. Let's blame that next person down the line. But if we want to truly change, just like the growth and fixed mindset Carol Dweck talked about, Brian Moran and them talked about the accountable mindset. The cost of accountability includes we have to change personally. And discomfort will arise from the work needed to grow personally, to improve those results. Just like I told you with my exercise. When that alarm went off at 4:30, that was a need to change. There was discomfort that early in the morning to get my butt out of bed. But I knew if I wanted to improve the results and grow personally, I had to live with that discomfort. I had to change that self-image. I can tell you, I can show you pictures in my office right now of when I was heavier, big old fat cheeks, some glasses there and everything else. And will you know that's been 20 plus years ago, November 18th of 2022 is when I started. So over 20 years now. And I still have people come up to me and say, man, you've really kept that weight off. So I'm kind of like, when are you going to remember me from this? But the thing is, a lot of times we won't get there because we won't let go of that ego. We kind of blame of other people, the external events. They're always someone else's fault. We won't make that accountable mindset. But to be accountable, we have to have that honest examination and confrontation with our own agency in our current situation. So with that change that you wanted to make, whatever it is, you have to have agency in that current situation. Remember, starting out, it's going to be a blow to our ego. It's going to challenge our worldview, that paradigm. It's going to negatively affect our self-efficiency in the short term. But we have to let go of that to be able to make progress. And they talk about we will miss some pleasure opportunities. I will tell you, during that time when I gained that weight, man, I didn't find a buffet I didn't like. I was at that buffet line and I like food still today. But I realized when we say yes to the work you get better, I had to say no to something else that I enjoyed. And that was those buffets. So one of the rules I made was I changed my eating habits. I stopped going to buffets because I knew I didn't have the control not to eat a little bit of food because I wanted to get my money's worth, right? So I had to make that change. So in the accountable mindset, time cost and money cost come in. Being accountable can require time and our money to do what it takes to get it right. I had both of those. The time, I had to get up early and I had to do it consistently. I didn't exercise since high school days and maybe a little bit in college. So I had to give that time to exercise. The money side of it, I paid for a trainer because I was that tightwad that if I paid for something, they had the rule that if you didn't call within 24 hours, what happens? You still paid for the session. So I changed that to make it right. So we have to realize there's a cost to change. One of the things that you'll see is the pain of change is the first cost on a list because it's perhaps the highest and most immediate price we will pay for choosing to grow in accountability. What will be the pain associated with what you want to do? What will be the pain that you have to give up? If you're going to give up smoking, if you're going to start changing your eating habits, if you're going to start exercising, what will be the pain? Well, one, if you start exercising, what happens? You get sore. And what happens to most people when they get sore? That stops it because that pain, I'm going to stop at that time. So if I'm going to stop with that pain, what happens? But the thing is, the next thing we do is if we continue it on, we get past that pain and we're able to make that change. But we have to realize there is a cost to change what we want to change. And a lot of times, many people dislike that change that's required to grow, to really get better, to step out, to require that uncertainty. And they're going to be a struggle with self-improvement. We have to change this up here to be able to change the rest of us. So we have to change our mind. But with self-improvement, it takes work. Instead of saying I can't, I find ways that I can. So how can we make those changes? And realize there will be cost to change. There's no instant gratification. Nobody is able to achieve it right out the gate. They'll still sometimes want to choose to play victim in life and avoid accountability because of delayed gratification. You talk to anyone that's become a millionaire, most of them have not done it because they've become a millionaire. I always remember the story of a gentleman that worked for the Missouri Lottery. 25 years in, they decided to have every millionaire back from the lottery that became a millionaire. And he said it became one of the saddest things ever because the majority, I don't remember the exact number, but it was kind of the 80-20 rule. 80% of the people they made millionaire no longer had their money. Less than 20% did. Why do you think that is? They received instant gratification of winning $1 million, but they did not know how to control or spend their money. So guess what happens? They went out and spent it all, and then they had nothing left. Think about our life. How is that? Sometimes we spend everything that we get, and we don't realize that sometimes it takes where we have to reserve that instant gratification. It doesn't happen. But what does our society say? Everything happens immediate. you know? So people that live in that victim stance, they kind of live in that immediate benefit side, but the costs are delayed. Accountable stance, what happens? You have to delay the benefits, but your costs become immediate. So the trade-off is that immediate gratification versus future cost, combined with our innate desire for comfort, drives most behavior patterns. Let's look at that again. The trade-off of immediate gratification versus future cost combined with our innate desire for comfort drives most behavior patterns. Think back to this again. The accountability ladder. Where do you stand? Are you a victim mindset? Things just happen to you? Or are you that accountable mindset? Things happen because of you. Which one do you want to be on the ladder? The person that makes it happen, finds solutions, they own it, they acknowledge their reality? Or do you want to be that person that blames others? You wait and hope something good's going to happen someday for you. You give excuses why you can't do it. Or you say, I don't know, I don't have that skill, and I'm not willing to learn that skill. That mindset drives us each and every time. I can tell you, if we have that accountable mindset, we're going to climb higher on the ladder. Personally, not even professionally, you're going to be a better person if you have that type of accountable mindset. So when we look at accountable versus victim mindset, an interesting thing happens. We start to adopt a more accountable mindset. Just as if we're in present victim thinking increases future victim thinking, if we present accountability thinking, it will increase our future accountability thinking. So the more we think accountability, the more we think about it, it increases that area. It allows us to build a more and create more. To expand your impact, you must work on your thinking. We've got to change the way we think today. And the thing is, the world is a challenge because it's a very negative society. So we have to overcome, to be able to overcome and become accountable, we have to take greater ownership of not just who we are, but the thinking of who we want to be. And they share with us here that all you can do is control in life is the way you think and the way you act. But those two things are all you need to do to change the world. So to move up the ladder from impossible, you got to say, what if? What does that make possible? And then how might I? And then it starts to become probable. And then when we act on the plan, it starts to be a given. So you are the one that if you start thinking the way you act, those two things will change the world. And it will change, even more importantly, you. So when we look at it, what do you need to ask yourself? What's the what if? By considering what could be different for you and others, if you could make it happen, you begin to create an emotional connection to the outcomes that you could achieve if you do the impossible. So once you have this open door kind of policy of thinking, automatically becomes the shift that impossible to possible. So for yourself, think about it right now. What's your what if question? It's kind of a visioning question. What if? What if I made this change? What would it do for me? What if I did this? What would that do for me? And it becomes that visioning. I take business owners through a visioning process where we try to set up their 3-year plan, because a lot of them have a vision of where they want to go, but they don't have much clarity on how to get there. But boy, when we create that clarity, good things happen. But along with that, we have to ask from the next question, moves us from possible to probable. We have to ask, how might I do it? But be careful, because if you ask the how too soon, before you have a strong desire to achieve your vision, you will realize you don't know how, and you're likely to abandon those dreams. The how is the planning question. So I told you what was my what if. I knew I wanted to be an active father for my children. I knew with my heavy weight that was causing stress and causing strain. So when I'd get home, I wasn't very active with them. So I asked myself, How? What did I need to do? And I knew it was exercise that I needed to make that change. So when you close that gap between where you are now to where your vision is working through a series of problems and scenarios and identifying actions you need to overcome those actions become the tactics in the plan. So you have to create the plan. So questions we have to ask ourselves, once you have a plan on a way to accomplish what you seek, your thinking automatically shifts from possible to probable. Now you have a solution to how, and your thinking opens up even more. So sometimes we ask our questions. Taking action creates momentum. Anybody ride a merry-go-round when you were a kid? You know how hard it was to get that merry-go-round to get started? But man, once that thing started moving, you jumped on and you end up riding the merry-go-round, then you could jump off, get it started again real easy. That's the thing with action. When we start to see progress, your thinking will gradually shift again from probable to it's a given. You will keep it up. Exercise is a normal routine for me. I exercise normally 3 to 5 times a week because it's normal routine for me. It's easy to keep it going now that I've got it. But the other thing is I have to have that internal accountability that ensures that I keep acting to be able to get that freedom that I want to have in that area. So that becomes the area on accountable mindset where he talks about an uncommon mindset. The next book, I'm going to just share a few things with you, and then we're going to open it up for questions. So please make sure you're thinking about some questions you want to ask. I know it's a lot of information, and I'm going to share this link with you of the recording so you will have it. But Mind Your Mindset is the next book by Michael Hyatt and Megan Hyatt Miller that I pulled some things off. And this, I think, will bring it together for us. So the thing we have to look at is when we look at it, the one thing that Michael and Megan talked about is the brain that tells itself stories. Yes, there are problems out there, but how we respond to those problems is entirely in here, meaning in our own heads. So how do we make that change? Again, they go back to the brain that tells us stories. The big ideal is if you want to achieve your goals, experience the results we desire comes down to working with people in our lives and constantly changing circumstance we find ourselves in. Our primary tool in this endeavor is your brain. Your brain has the capability to help you make that change. The brain tells its story about either accepting responsibility. Again, you can go back to blaming outside forces for your problems, or you can decide instead, identify where you're stuck. I am stuck when it comes to what area? What area do you need new thinking in? Hopefully you've identified that for yourself as we've gone through this. What is that area? I didn't make you identify it in the chat, but I want you to really think about what is that area you need new thinking? Because we kind of get stuck there. But we've got to be willing to say yes, that you're going to accept the challenge of uncertainty. Resist the fear that would keep you passive. Embrace an attitude of possibility. Challenge your stories. Imagine a new and more empowering narrative. If you're ready, say yes. Say yes to yourself right now if you're ready to make that change. I'm serious. Put in the chat if you're ready to make a change. You don't have to put what it is, but put in the chat if you're ready to make a change and say, yes, I'm going to make this change. I'm going to commit right now. Because the key comes in introducing this narrator. And the narrator is that person each one of us has that lives inside our heads. It narrates the events of our lives in real time. It reviews those past events to make sense of them. And it looks ahead to help us deal with whatever's coming next. So remember, our brains tell stories to help us understand what's happening around us and how we respond. So the thing is, grade your narrator. How would you grade your narrator's overall accuracy in your storytelling? Now, remember, no narrator is perfect, so an A+ is not appropriate. Neither is any narrator totally unreliable. So don't give yours an F either, but somewhere in the middle. What is your narrator? Introducing the narrator. What's your big story? There's many stories in our life. What do you need to integrate and update? What story do you need to change right now? Crystallize that in your mind. Give it a name. Like maybe the story of the parenting teenager. If I was naming this back then, I would have named it the story of the being a better father. Still, it could be the story of promotion with work. Name your story and help you focus on it the rest of the time you're working through it. So what is that? Enlist a friend, get some accountability. Have somebody like your spouse or a coworker and stuff help you with this. So you really help you advise you in articulating that thinking to another person. Become accountable. With my weight loss, I told you my coach that I had at the time became my accountable person. He texted me. Well, actually, he didn't text. He called. Back then, we didn't have texting. Hard to believe. Back in 2002, you didn't have texting. So he would call and follow up with me. For the first 3 months, he did that pretty consistently whenever I had a session with my trainer to make sure that I was showing up and that I was attending and stuff. So I had somebody to make me accountable. And then we have to think about how our brain shapes our stories. We've got to look at our assumptions that underline these stories. The assumptions are everything we've earned by direct experience or learned through others, the input of others. So what assumptions do we need to change? What assumptions do we need to start? We got to learn from those and put those in. And then we've got to realize there's a cause and effect reasoning along with the memories. So we have to create a rich, detailed stories about the world so we know how to move successfully within it. Sometimes those stories will lead us off track. So we have to change your story. What do you want your story to write? I was able to write my story within about 11 months time frame of being able to lose that weight and then to be able to keep that off. Still today at 55, I'm working every day to be able to maintain that, to work hard on that. So now the story in my head, sometimes people say, well, when you age, it gets so much harder to keep that weight off. It's true. But you know what? I'm changing the story. Yes, I'm good. I can, but I don't need to eat as much. I can have discipline of saying no. I can know that on the weekends, if I've had a bad weekend, the next week, I'm going to be dialed in even tighter and really watching what I eat. So whenever we're stuck or stalled, we got to examine those stories. We got to separate fact from fiction so we see a better picture of reality. We've got to make that change ourselves. And we got to realize it goes ups and down by intuition. Intuition can be a valuable tool in integrating our old stories and creating new ones. But sometimes it's the only tool available. Sometimes it comes with serious risks we must factor in. So we have to make that change. Training that certainty for a result. The narrator is trying to tell you what's next. It doesn't like them. I don't know. But we have to learn to tolerate discomfort, just like they talked about earlier. That uncertainty to reap the rewards, to be able to make our story become what we want it to be. And then sometimes we've got to imagine a new story. We got to break free from our old thoughts, our old thought patterns. We can use several techniques available to overcome our brain's reluctance, but we've got to realize we've got to get it to the subconscious, not the conscious mind, to be able to get there. And then sometimes we got to think enough to sustain that innovation over a lifetime. We've got to solve our most urgent problems we face by leveraging the way we're thinking of others. We've got to realize feedback is benefit to us. Growth slows or even stops altogether. And then sometimes we got to let our mind run. Sometimes we focus on a problem so hard to find a solution. Sometimes take a walk, get a bite to eat, go to sleep. We can find those answers in just giving ourselves time and giving ourselves that imaginative insights that are produced by the subconscious mind when given the right opportunity to think. That's why I love meditating so much. Meditating slows you down. It slows the mind down. If you haven't done that I'd highly recommend getting a meditation practice and really putting that in place for you. So realize your narrator can become your ally. Sometimes we can be stuck with the stories we have about ourselves, but you can train that narrator in your mind to create a newer, truer storyline for your life. Talks about here, our potential is bound only by our imagination. When we break free from our stories that limit our potential, we drive progress and achievement. So I wanted to share those 3 books with you because they each talk about a different things. But did you notice how it came together? What Carol talks about Dweck in her book of mindset. She talked about growth versus fixed mindset. In Uncommon Accountability, they talked about the victim or the accountable mindset. Which one are you playing? And in Mind Your Mindset, they were saying that we have to change the narrator. We have to be the story that we want. We've got to be that person to make those changes. Some great books that if you need to change some habits, because sometimes it comes down to them creating a new habit. And these are some great books for that. High Performance Habits by Brendan Bouchard, The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, Atomic Habits by James Clear, or The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. Some recommendations that if you need to change some habits to pick up one of those books. Now, reach out to me if you have any questions and stuff. I want to come off screen now and share with you some others. But remember, your mindset is so powerful. It's what you decide to do each and every day. You have the capability to make that change, but you have to be the one willing to make that change. And the thing is, you have to start with your subconscious, getting it to your subconscious, because that's what's so powerful. So if we want to make that change, we've got to get there. Then it becomes sometimes a habit or discipline that you start to do. I shared with you with my exercise. What happened? Within 11 months, I lost 75 pounds. But it wasn't just those 11 months. It became now the last 21 years, a lifelong journey that I've continued because I know that I like food. So to make that change, I have to concentrate on it. I didn't diet. I never used the word diet. I changed my eating habits. But my mindset is totally different now when I'm looking at food. Food is fuel for me, fuel for my body. So I've had to decide to make that change. What's that change you want to make? You have the capability of doing it. You just got to decide, okay, I'm going to make that change and I'm going to go forward each and every time making that change.
That's all the time we have for this week. To continue your journey, head over to smallbusinessanswerman.biz to access the tools and resources mentioned in today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with someone who would benefit from listening. That's smallbusinessanswerman.biz. Until next time, remember, when you find the right solutions, your business grows and you get your time back.